let us welcome Professor Beddes-Bucio, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for making this space available and for the opportunity to exchange with your audience.
So my first question will be, President Biden recently announced that U.S. support for a vaccine patent waiver. How does that relate to a broader global inequality issue?
We have to remember what is really important about the current debate as to the vaccine waiver at the WTO. We are at a global, historical crossroads as to the COVID pandemic.
Do you really think that the vaccine waiver can solve all of the problems? And many thought the waiver was going to be a game changer in terms of the whole pharmaceutical industry. Where do things stand about this right now?
I think we have to be very clear that there's no magic solution. Even if a waiver is ultimately approved by the WTO, the only way this will actually make a difference in practice and increase access to vaccines is if that decision is combined with massive transfers of technology and know-how from the global north to the global south. And Biden's decision has to be understood in that framework. It's part of his overall strategy of bringing America back into a role of global leadership that was abandoned by Trump and filling that vacuum with a different approach. In the past, the approach that prevailed under Trump is what's been described as the phenomenon of COVID nationalism and vaccine nationalism, or America first. What this meant in practice is what we see. Each major power in the world, US, Russia, China, EU, each developing their own vaccines instead of what we needed then and need now, which is a coordinated global vaccine production and distribution effort.
So my point will be, making vaccine available for everyone seems like a moral issue, but it is actually a global public health issue because we are so deeply connected to each other. Can you share some further opinion about this?
The vaccines that are currently available were only made possible through overwhelming amounts of public funding in each of the countries where they were developed, paid by the taxpayers in the US, in the EU, in China, in Russia. This is why many argue that the vaccine should be considered what's called a global public good. This means, in fact, adopting the principle that none of us are safe until all of us are safe. This is not a matter of charity or goodwill. It's not simply a matter of donations or voluntary licensing. This is a matter ethically, politically, and legally that involves a duty and an obligation.